Hi, everybody. This is Cursed 20s. I'm David. This is Cody. Today, we're doing a DM interview about should D&D be escapism? So let's get right into it. Do you think that D&D should be a form of escapism, that you're telling a story that has nothing to do with the real world? It's completely separated from what's actually going on. Or do you think it should be used as a vessel to tell stories that are actually happening and just kind of turn them and twist them? And
Well, I'm actually going to turn it right back on you. I'm going to answer your question with the question. I run the game. You play. You're currently. I'm running. You're playing. So far, I haven't touched upon a lot of real world stuff. I've just been like setting up the world. There's been a lot of setup. We're like pretty early in the campaign, right? If you were to come into the next session and all of a sudden I'm talking about some war off in the distance and I started pulling things off of real life, would that break your immersion in the game, or would you feel like yeah, would it break your immersion in the game?
I think it all depends. It's kind of the easy out for an answer. But for me, I like not having anything that has to do with the real world in it. I like the escapism aspect. I like that when I come to play the game, we're playing a game. We're not trying to solve all the problems of the real world in our game. Because,
Right.
like, as much as that is a real problem, and that is something that I think some people have a real drive to do in their games, and that feels very fulfilling. For me, that's just not what I'm looking for. I want to escape the world.
I, you know, somebody's going to comment and say that if we are trying to create a platform, that we have a responsibility to talk about things. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I'm not educated enough to talk about a lot of the problems in the world, right? I also play D&D to escape, and I think it's okay to need to get away from things, right? Like you're playing to feel like you have control over something and to go through a story, and fantasy is escapism, and I think that that's super important. um
I will say though, just as you say that sentence, I could see that being the goal for a lot of people out there, and potentially people watching this right now. That when you want to play the game, you want to feel like you're accomplishing something. And let's all be honest, the world could be a lot better no matter where you're at right now. And
yeah,
some people might feel like, hey, I can't do it in real life. Let me do it in the game. Let me beat this oppressive regime in the game.
yeah, I don't disagree with that. So if I was to like take inspiration from real world events and add them into the game in just like a fantasy skin, is that how would that like work? Like if I like was to take something like you can't say the word on YouTube. Let's talk about the sickness thing that happened in 2019, right? If I was to add some type of plague like that into the campaign, is that like, oh, that's cool, it adds a new wrinkle, or is it like, oh, now I'm just remembering 5 years ago about how crappy the world was?
I'll be honest, that's long enough ago for me that like it doesn't really feel. If we would have been doing that in 2020, 2019, probably would have felt a little cliche and a little too much. But now, looking back on it, at that point, it's more just taking inspiration from history, which is what all stories do.
Right.
Right? There's almost
Yeah.
no story that isn't taking inspiration from history and retelling a story in some way that's been told. And
Mhm.
a lot of stories that we tell in D&D and in any game like that, storytelling game, there's going to be lines you can draw to real life, you
Mhm.
know. I think it's just all about doing it tastefully. Like, I think the most classic example for me is Star Wars and the Stormtroopers and the group that they represent, which also is a group I can't really mention here,
Yeah. Everybody knows who the stormtroopers are.
but as a kid I didn't, right?
Right.
It wasn't until I grew up that I started putting those together. It was done so tastefully in a way that, like, you know, if you don't know what that is, you're not going to know that that's what it's alluding to.
So so Star Wars is like science fiction, and science fiction is actually a mainly a medium to comment on the world. But fantasy historically has been a way to escape the world, right? So this is where it gets a little bit like different. Like all science fiction is really just an exaggeration of something happening in the world. So like the Galactic Empire in Star Wars is obviously supposed to represent um, Germany during World War II,
Yes.
right? The rebels are supposed to represent the people of Europe fighting against them. The Jedi are representing a certain religious group being prosecuted and hunted down, right?
Yep.
So they all represent something. And then there's it also it's a commentary on like the politics during like the Vietnam War area. Like that's what science fiction is for. But then you go to Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings is just a story about good overcoming evil.
I actually think if from what I've heard, and I can't say that I've researched a lot, but it's actually very reminiscent. And there's a lot of people that see the lines to World War One because Tolkien was a soldier in World War One. So while it's not the war that we were necessarily taught in school, we're all taught World War Two. He grew up with World War One, and that's what his books are about.
So that's what I'm getting. I guess that's what it goes back to it. Star Wars is as a grown up, you can watch it and be like, this is a commentary on this time period, right? Lord of the Rings, if you watch it close enough, you'd be like, oh, they took inspiration from that war for his story, but it's not a commentary on the war. It's just like he took ideas and inspiration from things that happened in World War One and put a fantasy coat on that and put it in his. I guess like I don't know if I'm describing the difference between like a commentary.
No, I think you are.
And inspiration from it. So if I was to use D&D as a commentary on, say, racism in America, right? And that would be something I could do in Strahd. Like, we have one person of color in our campaign, and he's from
Ecuador.
sorry, I had to cough. He's from Ecuador. And then the rest of us are white males. So it's hard for me to say I'm going to do a commentary on racism when I don't know if I've ever experienced true racism, right? But outsiders in Barovia are hated, right? And so there is like a sense of like racism in Barovia, and it's like, is it my job to use that to commentate about how that's wrong when I don't come from a place to be able to commentate on it? I don't know. Like, how do I? It's like the line's a little blurred there, isn't it?
And then I'm sure as the DM, when you're having to play the bad guys, you're having to be that person. That's got to feel really shitty too. You know, like that's so.
Like in the last episode, I think somebody commented on like another like an orc like gross, and then like there was like some like one of the elves who was like, so all the humans in Barovia hate anybody who's not a human, and so they both hate this elf and this orc, and the orc and the elf hate each other because of like long lasting hatred towards both sides. It's like, I don't know. It's just like, is that stuff okay? Or is that okay with you guys as it goes in the world? Or do I need to find a way to like
I think
myself out of it?
It's okay because it makes sense, right? Like Barovia is the strapped land, nobody gets in or out. It's a whole thing. If we were just on the Sword Coast and we were just in some random town in Faerun who was acting like that, that would feel a little forced, you know? Or if you were having some oppressive regime move in that was acting that way, like it would feel a little forced, right? But the fact that that is the land that we went to, it doesn't feel like you are trying to write a social commentary, or even the authors of the book were trying to write a social commentary. It does still feel like escapism. It does still feel like we've been transported to another world. This world just is terrible and has these terrible things happening. And that is one of the terrible things.
So back into it, the character of Strahd, as written in his book, is based off of basically the character is a sexual predator in a place of extreme power, right? And you could take that as a commentary on anybody in Hollywood, anybody on politics, right?
Exactly. Like, that's kind of what I'm saying, where you could draw lines from so many places in real life to that person, and you could, in your mind, make that person Strahd. Mm-hmm. And you could turn that into a social commentary in your mind if you wanted to be. But to me, it's not written to be that.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as like they took an inspiration from like, they took an inspiration from like a real life thing that is true in the States, in Europe, like it's true everywhere.
Yep.
People in power, most of them do bad things. Yep. And then they have you, and then they put a vampire fang on him and tell you he's a blood-sucking parasite and you have to kill him, right? Yep. So it's like, it's really hard because like, I think I'm firmly in like, especially D&D, it is escapism. When I run D&D, even when I play D&D, like Again, Aiden, my last character, big, strong warrior fighter dude. Like he was like, I don't want to go to work and think about going to work. I want to think about going on epic adventures, saving the girl and killing dragons. Right?
Yeah.
Like that. I don't want to think about like, oh, by the way, though, like the current government is fascist. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to be experiencing that in my time that I'm setting aside to have fun, because that's not fun for me.
And some people might say, well, like, we're grown-ups, right? So what? Okay, let's try to think about it from the other people's point of view. It escapism is. I've heard this before. Like escapism is for somebody who's mentally weak. You should constantly be trying to figure out how to make the world a better place.
My answer to that is, in my everyday life, I am doing everything I can to make the world a better place. Right? Like
Kind of really
I don't not stand up when I see something happening. I stand up when I see something happening. I don't just let things go by. I don't.
I try to live like a moral, good life.
Yeah.
I try to make the right decisions. I try to provide for my loved ones. I try to be a good friend. I try to.
But I'm not trying to be a politician, because you can't be a politician and actually be a good person. Like, you don't have that drive to want to be in power if you actually are looking out for like the good of people, because nobody.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely, dude.
Who said that?
Somebody a long time ago.
Sure,
a lot of people.
Dude,
a lot of times.
Look it up. I'm gonna look it up on video, and we're gonna be ashamed that we didn't know who that is. Right?
It's probably like Stalin or somebody, right?
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it says Lord Action. I don't know who that is. Like, apparently, it's just a thing that people have said for a long time.
Okay,
cool.
But like, yeah, I think that if anybody has a criticism about the escapism, it's because they feel helpless, and I can't blame them for that, because it's hard to feel like the individuals out there make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it's strictly that feeling that prevents the people from making the difference. You know, like,
I think
this turned into a whole different discussion.
Yeah. No, but I get what you're coming from. I think that I'm firmly in the camp that it is okay to need a break. It is okay to need a break.
And dang it, if I want to be a freaking goblin-like bard that is over-sexualizing everything that he can put his hands on, that's what I'm going to be.
And I fully support that. All right, everybody, this has been another DM interview. Thank you for watching Curse 20.